The Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is sponsored by James Oliver Coffee Company at jamesolivercoffee.com. James Oliver is a second-generation family-owned and Detroit-based coffee roaster, offering 19 different blends of freshly roasted coffee. The company pioneered link temperature roasting, and they source the best beans from around the world to create an outstanding coffee experience, no matter which beans you choose. To start, try the Alma Mater blend. James Oliver Coffee gives $5 for each bag of its Alma Mater blend to the Detroit Public Schools Foundation. And don't forget, use the promo code CFSHOW, that's CFSHOW, to get 15% off your first order. James Oliver Coffee, available at select grocery stores in Metro Detroit and, of course, at jamesolivercoffee.com. Remember, use the promo code CFSHOW to get 15% off your first order. That's jamesolivercoffee.com. Hey, greetings, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm your host, Craig Fahle, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about this week for sure. The charges, or perhaps lack thereof of charges, in the Breonna Taylor case will be something that we talk about today. Obviously, the loss of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the fight to replace her is something we will get to. And, of course, our nominees for Schmuck of the Week coming up a little bit later on in the show. I have some wonderful guests with me, as I usually do. Allan Lengel, who is the editor and co-founder of Deadline Detroit, is with us once again. Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Nancy Derringer, Deadline Detroit contributor, is here. Longtime journalist and great friend. Thank you for being here as well, Nancy.
Going for my room rater upgrade. I got my Audubon prints up there and everything. So yeah.
Well, very good. Yeah, rate my room. Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, rate my room.
They have
yeah.
I don't know if I have enough audience yet to actually justify them judging my room, but maybe I'll submit it to them just in case. We shall see. Special guests this week include Greg Bowens, longtime political consultant, former spokesperson for Mayor Dennis Archer. Greg, welcome back, sir.
Hey.
And also, pinch hitting today for our planned guest was going to be former Detroit Police Homicide Inspector Ira Todd. He could not join us today last minute. So pinch hitting is my friend Manny Mota, actually Steve Fishman, of course, longtime attorney here in the community. Thank you very much for being here, and forgive the airplane reference, but that's one of those scenes that just sort of sticks in your brain. Steve, thanks for being here.
It's interesting that I'm.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting that I'm replacing Ira Todd because I represented him 30 years ago.
Yeah, well, and you know, that was something that I was actually thinking about this morning, but that's a story for another day. But let's start with Brianna Taylor, because this was interesting. The Attorney General in Kentucky announcing some charges there against one of the police officers, not the officer that actually shot Brianna Taylor, but somebody whose bullets actually went into a neighboring apartment, causing reckless endangerment. But no charges for the police officer that actually shot Brianna Taylor in her own home. Greg, I'll start with you on this one. The outrage is out there for sure. There were some charges, but not the thing that people were looking for sure. This one seems to, this one's going to create some problems for a while.
Yeah, I think it will. And unfortunately, the biggest victim, I believe, of this situation, aside from Brianna Taylor, has been the assault on the consciousness of Americans from coast to coast in our ability to be able to really trust the justice system. It just seems so ironic that you get charged for shooting up somebody else's, apartment, but not the death of the woman whose apartment you charged into. It's just, it's hard to make sense of it. It really is. And there was a time when we could all hope that the Justice Department would intervene in some kind of way, do their own investigation. Maybe there'll be some other charges. But under this administration, I don't think that anyone's really holding their breath on the Justice Department stepping in.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Allan.
No, I was going to say, he's right in terms of the Justice Department. Normally, the procedure would be if people felt like the locals fell far short, they would have the Justice Department come in, and not necessarily that the Justice Department would automatically get charges, but people felt confident that at least some justice was being done. With this administration, there's no way they're going to put themselves in that situation, and particularly with Trump and Barr as the AG, we're just not going to see it. It's just.
But they do have the situation here, Steve, and I think you can address this. I mean, a grand jury took a look at the evidence that was there, and apparently we've had some testimony that's been changing a little bit over time. They're now pushing for that grand jury evidence to be made public. How critical is that going to be in determining whether or not these charges go anywhere near far enough or are justified?
Well, there's any number of things that are involved in this case. Greg is absolutely right when he says that, and you can think of the Vincent Chin case many, many years ago here, and that case went all the way to fruition. There was a guilty plea. They didn't go to prison. The Justice Department took the case. They brought civil rights violations. You got to remember, they can bring 1983 violations criminally, and they wound up going to jail in federal court. I agree with you guys. It's not going to happen in this administration. In terms of grand jury proceedings, I don't know what they do down, in that state. I know here grand jury proceedings are secret, so you can scream and stomp your feet all you want. The only time you see grand jury testimony is if someone's charged federally, and that testimony for the witnesses is then turned over to the defense lawyer. So I don't know what the law is there. I don't know how they handle it. But I can tell you this, and I've read some interesting stuff about it. The grand jury only considers what the grand jury gets. And we don't know, none of us know what kind of evidence was sent to the grand jury. We don't know what kind of, you can have hearsay. Again, I'm talking federal court. I don't know what the law is down there. But you can have hearsay testimony. The government is in total control. There's no defense lawyer in a grand jury. So whatever they present, everybody's going to say, oh, the grand jury should have done this and that. We don't know what they presented to the grand jury down there. And that's another problem in this kind of a situation. But ultimately, if you don't mind me going on a little bit, this morning, Nolan Finley, of all people, in the Detroit News, he really put his finger right on what the problem is. Until we recognize, the collective we, that the so-called war on drugs is ridiculous, you're going to have incidents just like this with police officers who have too much weaponry and too much stuff coming in the middle of the day to somebody's house or someone's apartment, chasing after who knows what. These are the kinds of things that are going to happen. And I sent Nolan an email, said, amen, what do you think the chances are? The thing came back, not likely. And unfortunately, that's the truth. It's surprising to me, though, as time has gone on and marijuana has been legalized in so many different places, and a lot more people are recognizing the fact that people are going to use drugs. They're going to do it. Unless you want to lock up the users, you're going to have drugs. You're going to continue to have these kinds of situations as long as no-knock warrants are authorized, as long as police are given free rein to chase after who the hell knows who, for who knows what reason. You're going to wind up with situations just like this. It's a societal problem in addition to a law enforcement problem.
Well, and the other thing that's on display with this, and there's been some decent discussion about this lately, is, the use of these no-knock warrants is very sort of militaristic technique. I mean, this is sort of the militarization of the police force on display here once again, where you have people like they're going after Osama bin Laden or something like that, for a drug offense or dealing, something like that. And I don't know. I mean, we're getting too used to it, in my opinion, seeing police walking around looking like some sort of paratroopers and stormtroopers. It just doesn't make sense. No longer is it the guy with the hat on and just walking on the beat. A nightstick. Yeah. It's not that anymore at all, although nightsticks have their own problems. But these guys look like they're in the military now.
Can I yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Then I'm going to follow up.
I was listening to a Canadian radio station one day a couple of years ago on my way to do my grocery shopping, something we can do because we're so close to Canada. And the news break came on, and it said something like, Windsor police have released their use of force data for whatever year it was. And it turns out that they had to use nightsticks 39 times. And it's like, just across the river, this paradise exists, wow. where the use of a police use of force report includes like nightsticks and, gunfire doesn't even get into it.
I think, as somebody who covered federal court, federal law enforcement here in Detroit for quite a while, to me, it's insane that occasionally you have a drug dealer who is so dangerous that you have to pull that surprise. But, probably 99% of the time, you do a surveillance. You wait for the person to come out of the house. You wait for them to come out of a restaurant. You pull up. It's not necessary, and it's dangerous the way these things are being done. And that is one of the things that needs to change, the way that things are being executed. chances are this guy wasn't Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar, you might have to do that kind of thing. But with these guys, I mean, there's so many different ways to go about this and not put so many lives in danger. And it's just stupid policing, really. It's just really, in the end, it's criminal. I understand. Look, these guys had warrants. So they're saying we're covered. We were executing a warrant. Did they need to ram down the door? Did they do their research to realize the guy wasn't even there? I mean, there's a lot of negligence and really, criminal behavior there. But it's like the system is so screwed up, and we continue to allow this to happen.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I mean, the fact that they brought any charge at all in this, they might as well have just not brought any rather than this reckless endangerment one, right. Greg, because I mean, that's like an insult to everybody that is out there marching right now and trying to actually, raise awareness of the problem that exists between the Black community and law enforcement in this country. A reckless endangerment. Why? Because you might hit a white person in the apartment next door is what everybody's saying. Sure. That's why that charge is out there. And it is an insult in my mind. I mean, I think people have a right to be out there on the street protesting this, and they should be. And of course, the response to it with the militias coming in and stuff like that, and it's a recipe for a disaster, I'm afraid.
Oh, it definitely is. I don't think that we can overstate the impact that this kind of decision has on people's trust in the justice system, whether it's in Kentucky or Michigan or California or wherever you might be. That Kentucky example is the kind of thing that resonates wherever you may stand. And so you'll wonder, well, it happened in Kentucky, but could it happen in Michigan? Or could it happen in Illinois or Ohio, or pick your place? And I think that's the real stain here. And it comes during, I know we're going to talk about it, but it comes during the time when we're honoring Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed from the Supreme Court. And so on the one hand, we've got whiplash where we're looking at what a fine example of someone who can dispense justice and be fair up against, this guy from Kentucky, this 34-year-old attorney general who makes decisions that seem to make no sense, that fly just opposite of what we're celebrating here. Or celebrating in the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, not her passing.
Well, good transition there, because we do need to talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and of course, I think this was one of those things that the timing of this, and God bless her, she hung on for a long time through a lot of illness, been dealing with cancer for a long time, and stayed on the court until she died, and was still reading cases and making decisions and writing her dissents and her opinions up until the day she passed away. And of course, without waiting even 24 hours, Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump were like, hey, we're going to fill the seat. And the new rallying cry at the Trump rallies is fill the seat. Despite the obvious hypocrisy that exists between Mitch McConnell's actions from 2016 to now, I mean, this is just everything coming together at the same time has been incredibly stressful. And I have to say, I reached out to both Allan and Nancy after RBG's passing and was like, maybe we should do a special show. I calmed down, took a breath, realized I wasn't going to be saying anything about her legacy or what Mitch McConnell is doing that hasn't been said by somebody else already. I needed to calm down and gather my thoughts a bit first. But I was rightfully upset. And I think, again, this just was the ultimate gut punch at a time when we're already super stressed. And I unfortunately feel that, yes, while we are honoring her, she is lying in state, the first woman to lie in state, the first Jewish person ever to lie in state, two huge things, but it's overshadowed by this partisan fight over who's going to replace her on the court. And I think that does her a disservice, Nancy. I mean, she was a pioneer.
She was a pioneer, and you may have calmed down. I guess I've kind of calmed down, but I'm still. I
took a breath.
I'm still extremely angry about this. I mean, I am the person on this panel with 2 X chromosomes, but I want to remind you all: if you think this is all about abortion in Roe, it's not about abortion in Roe. When the Republicans take control of the court, especially if they put on another psychopath. It's not just the end of Roe, it's the end of any progressive legislation. My best guess for what's going to happen in November is I believe Trump's going to lose. I think they're going to lose the Senate. I think they're going to have even more of Democrats can have more of a hold in the House. I think all two branches of government, both houses of Congress, are going to belong to the Democrats. But the Republicans are going to have, and then the Republicans are going to confirm their psychopath in December in the lame duck, and they are going to have control of the court for a generation. Okay, and that means no progressive legislation is going to survive. All of these concerns about judicial activism, and we need to put this power in the hands of the people, not a bunch of unelected judges. That's gonna evaporate like Mitch McConnell's last shred of human decency, and it's gonna be back to everything's going to end up before the Supreme Court. Everything's going to get shot down. And, Mitch McConnell, eventually, when they lower his disgusting corpse into the ground, is still going to have a smile on his face because, hey, he did it. He pulled it off. So that's where I am now. Maybe I'm a little cynical.
It's a little doom and gloom. I agree to some extent, but I think it's a little doom and gloom.
Doom and gloom? Well, that's why Democrats are talking about packing the court. I mean, this is minority rule. I mean, we're supposed to protect minorities, but we're not supposed to give them the reins to the team that's pulling the country.
Right.
Now, that's not this, I used to, and Steve, you're an officer of the court, so, but, my esteemed editor here is making this comment, and it's almost comes through the lens, or it does come through the lens, that you have, a team on the Supreme Court or the federal bench, but we're talking about the Supreme Court. You got the Democrats and the Republicans. You got your Democrat Supreme Court justices and your Republican Supreme Court justices. And the court is supposed to be above all of that. I thought they were until Bush v. Gore. But the new Chief Justice, not the new Chief, but, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is really, he's working hard to restore my faith in them being.
You have the faith of a child, Greg. I mean, you're right.
I have the optimism of a child.
He does. I mean, you're right. He does seem to be the only one who has any sense that he is not a political animal. But he's up against Strip Search Sammy. He's up against Clarence Thomas. Booth Kavanaugh. And
Alito
well, that's Strip.
Oh, that's right. There you go. Sorry.
Booth.
And pretty
I thought
soon,
he was beer Kavanaugh.
Yeah, well, Booth.
I like beer.
Yeah,
I like beer.
And so the only, I mean, and of course, if Trump wins another term, then both Alito and Thomas are both going to retire, and they're going to say, "We learned Ruth Bader Ginsburg's lesson," and then we're going to have two more psychopaths. Only they're going to be 40. And, it's like we're all going to die.
Speaking of packing the court, speaking of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her last wishes, I mean, by the way, I don't have an a-hole of the week, which I would like. We call it the Schmuck of the week to be polite. But Tucker Carlson would get it just because he actually had the nerve to go on a show and suggest that maybe those last words and the thing that she, had her daughter write down for her were made up.
All
right.
I am thinking the F word right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Steve.
I love that during the rally, they did not tell Trump about her death because they feared that people at the rally would cheer.
Yeah.
Which is really telling of the following there.
Right.
So
go ahead, Steve.
Here's the way I look. Number one, nobody's really talked about it, including a lot of the talking heads. But Lengel and I certainly know what I'm talking about. Justice Ginsburg dies on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Our holidays start in the evening, right?
Mm-hmm.
She dies on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and Mitch McConnell it wasn't any 24 hours. It was within an hour.
Night. Yeah.
I think my son told me it happened because he was looking at his news feed. And by the time I went downstairs and looked on the computer, and nobody said anything about it. You talk about an insult to the Jewish community on Rosh Hashanah. He couldn't wait 2 days to start talking like that. That's the first thing. Second thing, Nance, one thing, I'm not going to get into what the court's going to do. I'm not going to say I disagree with what the court will do, but I can't imagine this is a woman, at least in my view, that did more for women's rights than anybody. Maybe back as far as Susan B. Anthony or whatever, Harriet Tubman. But I cannot believe that women are not going to surge to the polls. They're not going to be telling pollsters. They're not going to go on TV. But I find it hard to believe that women will do anything other than surge to the polls. And I agree with you. I think they're going to swamp these guys, assuming that they count all the votes. Okay.
Yeah.
What I do believe about the Supreme Court, and I don't remember whose column I read that talked about it, but I think that person was correct. The Supreme Court, up until really Bork's nomination, but even through Scalia and Justice Ginsburg, Scalia was confirmed 98-0. Justice Ginsburg was confirmed 96-3. Nobody had any doubts of what their views were, that he was a very extreme conservative and that she was a very big liberal. But in those days, the Supreme Court was treated as if it was a real institution of, for the country, not as a political softball. I think the only thing that's going to give us a chance, I'll be gone, Lengel will be gone, you guys might be still around. They need to have no Supreme Court justice should get a lifetime term. What you're talking about, Nancy, to give somebody like this lady with the 7 kids who's going to be a disaster if she gets on, she's 46 years old. She's going to be there 40 years. That's crazy. The term I saw was 18, and I think that makes sense. You're on for 18 years, and that's it. And then you'd have an opportunity, even with all the crazy stuff that goes on with the legislature, at least you wouldn't be stuck with people forever like you are now. Okay.
Well, and then you'd basically be creating a situation where, whoever the president is at the time gets the appointment when that 18 years is up. So, and you could set a rule in stone saying, look, this will be taken care of before the next election, no matter when it is. You must vote on this nominee. I think that's something that we've got to do. But in the meantime, yes, this potential nominee, we will find out whether she gets it tomorrow. I think that there may be a surprise waiting in the wings because there's a lot of speculation about her. But I also think that there's a lot of things that people could go after. And if they put up somebody who is seen as being a supporter of the Handmaid's Tale, which is the way that she's being portrayed by the left right now, that's gonna create a very, very difficult confirmation process. And there might be somebody that's not on the radar that comes through that it might be a little bit smoother than that. I wouldn't put it past Trump to put on the worst candidate possible because that's what he likes to do. But
we can't let this.
Wait, Nancy, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say there's the Hoosier psycho and now there's the Florida psycho. So, it's just
we can't let this moment pass without at least acknowledging with, I think, glee that Donald Trump got booed when he went to go visit.
Yeah. That was somewhat gratifying.
That was awesome.
It's interesting. Obama nomination for the Supreme Court that final year was somebody, he tried to pick somebody moderate that would be palatable to both sides. They are not going to attempt to do that in any way.
Oh, no. But, he needed those Republican votes to get his nominee through. So he had to pick somebody somewhat moderate. But, anyway. All right. Well, we'll see what goes on. We'll know who this nominee is tomorrow. And we should have a little bit more going on. But, the reason that he is rushing this through is because it seems to me that the president is fairly convinced that the only way he's going to win this damn election is through assistance from the Supreme Court. I know that he's already planning to contest a number of states with mail-in balloting that is going on. I mean, voting's already started in 18, 19 states, something like that. Our ballot should be arriving here any day now. I will be filling mine out and taking it directly to my polling place, dropping it off. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to fill it out as soon as I get it because I already know who I'm voting for. I think I figured this out a long time ago. But that's going to happen. But the president still unwilling to sit there and suggest that there's going to be some sort of peaceful transfer of power. And despite the Republicans saying, hey, there will be a peaceful transfer of power, they need to call out the president and say, stop the bullshit, sir. Just if you lose, you lose. Move on with grace and dignity. Two things that he doesn't know the definition of.
Yeah.
I'm setting up a joke there. A joke. But
that was not a setup.
But the fact that
two of his favorite strippers, Grace and Dignity, or what?
Dignity with an I at the end and a little heart over the I, right? So I mean, the fact that the guy won't even sit there and admit that he might potentially lose this election is really, really disconcerting to me. It's he's just a jackass. We knew that all along. But I mean, Nancy's just shaking her head back there.
I have reached the point where I can no longer discuss Donald Trump as like a fully functional human being. His his instinct is always to sow chaos, right? You know, just excuse my hard R language here, but he just likes to fuck shit up, right? You know, and he can't stand out there and say, well, of course, if I lose, you know, I will observe the norms of the country. I mean, he can't do that. He has to say, I'm not going to lose. And if I do, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to fuck shit up again, you know, and that's just the way he is. And so it's like dealing with the worst 13-year-old on the planet. You know,
let me make a suggestion, by the way. I don't know if you guys have had this opportunity. I got my New Yorker magazine yesterday in the mail, and I read there's a great article in there by Jeffrey Toobin, who's a good commentator on the legal system.
Very much so.
And the good news for us is that unlike in 2000, he details what happened in 2000, how the Republicans sent an army of lawyers under the direction of Ginsburg, Benjamin Ginsburg, and how the Democrats really kind of played it like it's only a normal thing, and they weren't geared up for it, and that's went the way it went. Well, now the Republicans have their usual army, but the Democrats are doing the same. And there was a guy, his last name was Elias. I think it might be Mark Elias. He's another elections guy, and he's in charge of all this. And they've already started with lawsuits in different places. We've seen some of the results where I can't remember what state it was that said you could count every ballot as long as it was postmarked by election day, et cetera. So I felt better about the fact of contesting these things. It looks like the Democrats are at least, you know, the Democrats are not very good at punching in the nuts. They're just not good at it. They want to stand there like Marcus of Queensbury. Well, unfortunately, Republicans don't even know who the Marcus of Queensbury was. They only know people in the nuts. And I felt better after reading this article that we've got some nut kickers there on the Democratic side too.
Well, I mean, you know, Trump reminds me of, though, is that kid, like you're playing a game of Monopoly and it's clear that the kid's going to lose. So he just smashes all the pieces on the board and breaks his crap. Yeah. I mean, and then just takes his board and goes home. That's basically what he's trying to do here. The petulance is very equivalent to a third grader. It's pretty damn funny.
But I have a lawyer friend. Go ahead.
Greg, that part's all true. I agree with you. I mean, 13 might be a little too old, Nancy. I would say 9 or 10, actually. But
he has a sex drive, and so 9 or 10-year-olds generally are prepubescent. Go ahead.
when he says he's not going to do this, he's not going to leave, etc. The man is a punk. He's a coward. We saw that when he was in the White House, and they put him he went in the basement. If we win the election, and if we win in terms of all these arguments in court, that guy's not sitting there waiting for the Marines to take him out. He doesn't have the balls to do that. He'll be gone with his head down. Then he'll bitch like crazy. He's not going to do anything that puts his own self in peril. I guarantee you. Because he never has. Starting with his bone spurs, going to everything else he's ever done in his life.
They could dupe him and say, Mr. President, there's a threat outside. You need to come over here. And then suddenly, they handcuff him and take him out. He'll go for it. He's not that smart.
I didn't even think he would go for it, to be honest with you, since we're talking about.
They'll say, Mr.
Trump
President,
scenario.
we have a KFC banquet over here. Come on in this room. And then, they take him away.
All right.
Well, he's definitely not the guy that likes to be punked. If anything, he would just move out in the middle of the night.
Well, but next week we've got the first debate coming up between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Chris Wallace of Fox is going to be hosting this one. I
have to say, Chris Wallace.
I'm really looking forward to watching this.
I think Chris Wallace is a credit to the profession. I think. And why he's
definitely a credit to Fox.
I think he gives Fox some legitimacy because I think he really does a good job of being a true journalist. He's one of the few people who you can say is fair and balanced. I think.
I think what we're looking for on Tuesday with the debate is to see how well Biden punches back at Trump or can wither, Trump's BS attacks and his insults and all that stuff. Every one of these debates, we always have somebody coming in handicapped. Remember Bush? People were like, well, he's not going to be the smartest guy, but it'll be okay, And truth be told, what we've seen is people lose the debates, but win the election. Time and time again.
Well, I think
I'm taking bets.
If you saw Biden at the CNN town hall, I think he far outperformed anyone's expectations.
Right.
He stood there for whatever was an hour. He was very steady. He looked very strong, and he had stamina there, which I think. So Trump's response was, it sort of undermined Trump's narrative about him. So Trump is like, he must be taking drugs. He
Right.
gets that surge for an hour or two.
Yeah, and the fact that you've got his surrogates going on Fox News speculating on whether or not he's using speed for these events is just, I mean, because if anybody looks like they're Adderall dependent, it's Donald Trump. Looks like. I didn't say he was, and I'm not speculating that he is. But if anybody was, I would guess it was probably Donald Trump. But, look, Trump's going to have to be on the defensive on this one. And if you're Chris Wallace, I mean, how do you not go after these guys for how they deal with the coronavirus differently? And just lay out the fact 200,000 people have died. What would you have done differently? What should you have done? How would you respond to that?
Exactly that. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he said, watching Wallace, I wouldn't be surprised if he says exactly what you just said. That's what a defense lawyer would say.
Well, he's already asked Trump about that, and Trump has basically blown him off and says,
"I've done
man, it is what it is."
But there's going to be somebody on the other side saying he didn't even answer the question.
Exactly.
200,000 people are dead. This guy hasn't come up with a plan. He left it up to the individual states to do their own thing, and now we've got this hodgepodge of nonsense and surging cases nationwide at a time. I mean, you look what's happening in Texas right now. You look at what's happening in some of these other states. We're seeing real spikes again. There is no perfect response to this, but doing nothing is not an adequate one. And I think if you're Joe Biden, you just keep hammering that home. He buried his head in the sand at a time when we needed somebody to lead over and over and over again on every one of these issues. He was hoping that your 401k or your stocks were going to be enough to make you think he was a good president. But the fact is, the economy's faltering under his watch. The economy I built when I was vice president. You could just keep hammering him, saying he is an emperor with no clothes. He's weak. And I'm taking bets at some point in this thing when Trump tries to interrupt him, Joe Biden is probably going to tell him to shut up at some point. Hey,
Please
man, shut up, man. Can you see it?
Please don't put the image of Donald Trump with no clothes in my head again. Okay?
Well, you're the one that talked about prepubescence in Donald Trump. I didn't want to hear that either, Nancy.
As soon as you said that, it was like, ooh.
No, you know what? They present two very different pictures of reality, and Donald Trump is presenting a picture of things are fine, let's keep going. And so and it's weird because from a PR perspective, it's like, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in the picture where you don't have to wear a mask, where everything is okay, or do you want to be in the picture where you're scared and you're wearing a mask and the future looks bleak? And he keeps appealing to that kind of thing. He wore a mask at Ruth Bader Ginsburg's memorial on the steps of the Supreme Court. But it's amazing to see him, Trump, in a crowd of people, not just at the podium, but in a crowd of people, no mask.
Well, I mean, look.
And before we let that image go of him at Ruth Bader Ginsburg's casket, who we what else was going on at the same time, which was this absolute avalanche of boos from the crowd, and then culminating in a vote him out chant, which I so hope that he heard, and I think he probably did.
He looked hurt.
He
looked hurt. He's used to going to rallies while everyone, just nothing but adulation.
And
he's like, what? There's people out there who don't like me? And
I hope his wife, the sex worker, was hurt too, but I don't think.
All right.
Yeah,
well, we need to move on a little bit. Real quick, just because a couple of other things I want to get to before Schmuck of the week. At least one more thing. Boy, bad week for Wells Fargo. Good move, Mr. Scharf. Charlie Scharf is the chief executive and president at Wells Fargo Bank, which has already had some bruises to their reputation over the way that they handled the financial crisis or helped create the financial crisis. But he was getting questioned about whether or not there's good minority representation within the workforce at Wells Fargo. And he basically came out and said, look, there's just not a very good talent pool.
Right.
Yeah. And then he came back and tried to backtrack and apologize for saying it. But boy, bankers always come across as just regular human beings, don't they? Jeez. We put so much faith in these people who clearly have no faith in the American people.
You can't just leave it at him. I mean, that's a common trope. Pick your industry. where you can't find people. I mean, heck, even journalism is struggling these days to have their newsrooms reflect the diversity of the people that they cover, and to me that's surprising. I guess I was lucky enough to be a part of the golden age of journalism.
You were
with the rest of you guys, where it was not uncommon to see Black folks at the Detroit News and the Free Press and wherever else.
Would you encourage a smart young person to go into journalism today? Okay, I rest my case.
You know,
Yes.
I taught journalism. Yes. I taught journalism at the University of Maryland, 2008, 2009, and I told, you know, it was a terrible time for journalism. I mean, it was really struggling with the internet and all that. And I told the class, I said, and I asked the class, does anyone regret going to journalism? They said no. But I said, look, you guys, it's like you guys are planning, you know, you guys are planning 4 years ahead to move to New Orleans, and suddenly, you know, you have the craziness in New Orleans that happened in 2005. You know, it's Katrina. I'm sorry. I was having a senior moment there.
You're doing a hell of a job, Allan.
What's the name of this place? The Katrina, I think.
Well, but look, I mean, from a PR perspective, though, you know how you answer that question? You say, hey, no, we are not diverse enough. We are taking initiatives to increase that, and we have to do better as a company. That's right. What you're seeing the journalistic companies saying. And the smart CEOs will say that instead of saying, well, we're not going to try because the talent pool is too thin. That's just idiotic because it's not true.
That's part of the racism that exists out there. You know, he's just speaking what him and his buddies talk about, you know, at the country club over Zoom, I propose. I so assume. Maybe really. Not over Zoom. The DAC is still having people come, so I guess whatever country club he belongs to, they're still hanging out too. But I mean, that's part of the bigotry that exists out there. You know,
I think it's fine. I think Greg is 100% correct. I think that people still don't recognize how isolated a lot of these people are. They sit there, just like you said, whether it's at the country club or at the restaurant or around Zoom or wherever. Everybody looks like them. Everybody talks like them. Everybody thinks like them. They don't know anything about Black people. They don't know anything about Latinos. They don't know anything about Jews. They just know who they're with. And what's unfortunate, Craig, you're absolutely right. How much brains would it take to have given the answer that you just said? Do you need a degree in economics or journalism to have enough sense to know I'm not going to say what I just get ready to say on national television? Are you kidding?
And part of the problem for these finance guys, too, is that, let's be honest, the pool of talent that they're drawing from is very, very limited. They're looking for guys who go to like Wharton School of Business, maybe go to Yale, maybe go to Columbia. Some of these, Ivy League schools or higher end public universities like University of Michigan, Ross School of Business, places like that. They're not diversifying where they're looking. That's the other thing, too. Why not? Get some recruiters down to some HBCUs. Why not get some recruiters into the Western Michigans, Eastern Michigans of the world, the Wayne States of the world, as opposed to sticking to the same elite institutions on the East Coast? It's just not something that is working for them. And if they really want to do, those are not the only schools that teach freaking finance. It's all over the place. And so,
if you've ever spent any time with Ivy Leaguers, you know that the percentage of idiots to smart people is pretty much exactly the same.
Well, like I said, I see journalism committing the same sins right now. I mean, like, look, if you didn't go to Northwestern or Columbia in Missouri or Brown, you're not getting hired in any of the big networks right now. And it's just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know. There's just a whole lot of people out there with a lot of skills. All right. Is it time for Schmuck of the Week? I think it is time for the Schmuck of the Week. We
should have some music for that.
We'll talk to Michael Lucido. We'll talk to Michael Lucido about that to come up with something. Yeah, we'll come up with a little graphic we could put on right now and say, hey, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, time for Schmuck of the Week. And we'll have a little trailer. Yeah. Michael and I will figure out what we're going to make it look like.
Play the beginning of Stairway to Heaven.
And we could sort of Photoshop some sort of trophy with Donald Trump on it, I think, because it is named after him, the Donald J. Trump, the J stands for Genius, Schmuck of the Week Award. Who wants to go first this week?
I will.
All right, Allan Lengel, who do you got?
There's so many every week. It's just I'll pick an obvious person, Lindsey Graham, who has
that's an easy one.
Yeah, supported President Trump when he talks about maybe not accepting the election results. He's supporting him in that and saying, yes, it might have to go to the Supreme Court and stuff like that. It's like, I mean, that guy has gone. So, the best explanation of Lindsey Graham was in Rolling Stone when they talked about, somebody said, Lindsey Graham needs a lion. So his lion at the time was John McCain. When McCain passed, he turned to Donald Trump as his lion, and I think he found the wrong lion.
Absolutely. All right, who wants to go?
He needs is a hand on the leash that leads him around, but that's okay.
Or as they say in Yiddish, they'd say he needs a Zetz in the cup.
That's what he needs.
Which means a smack in the head.
That's what he needs.
All right, who wants to go next? All right, Steve. Oh, all right. Well, Greg,
Donald Trump. I'll go. Donald Trump. Donald Trump is my schmuck of the week for any number of reasons, not the least of which that he is so uncouth
out
and
there.
crass.
I mean, he could be the schmuck of the week every week. That's why we named it after him.
Every minute.
He could be.
Well,
he could be. But in honor of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I nominate Donald Trump as my schmuck of the week.
I think she would likely approve.
All
right, Steve Fishman.
I think she would too.
I'm going with Mitch McConnell for the reasons that the number one reason that I said earlier. The fact that, I mean, everybody knows he's the world's biggest asshole. Everybody knows he doesn't care about anything having to do with justice. But to pull a maneuver like he pulled on Erev Rosh Hashanah, 2 hours after she dies, if it was that long, he's the schmuck of the century, as far as I'm concerned.
Shonda. It's a Shonda.
It is a Shonda. That's a disgrace for those of you who don't speak Yiddish. A Shonda. Exactly.
Right, Nancy Derringer, who you got?
Well, I had two in mind, both of which have been chosen. So in the coming spirit of Amy Coney Barrett, I am deferring to the gentleman, and I am laying down my sword, and I'm going with the schmucks that have been chosen by these two gentlemen right here. So
all right,
Steve and Allan. So
I've got a couple here, and one of them is a sort of subcategory that we're creating. It's not the Gomer, but this is the lucky schmuck of the week, and the lucky schmuck of the week is one Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, who on some sort of technicality, because of the way the police got the videotape of him getting serviced inside this spa, since the video can no longer be admitted in court, the charges will be dropped. He is my lucky schmuck of the week.
Can I make a point?
Please.
A journalism point? That did give the New York Post the opportunity to put the headline on that story that said Robert Kraft gets off in
in massage parlor. Yeah. I did see that. So, the Post, for all their faults, and they have many, their headlines are still pretty darn good.
They do. They're great.
All right. But actually, my actual schmuck of the week is whoever on Donald Trump's staff decided it was a good idea for him to unveil his quote unquote healthcare plan, which we just saw yesterday, as a matter of fact, which amounts to, okay, he's been telling us for 4 years, I'm going to have the best healthcare plan. I'm going to have the best healthcare plan. So instead, he comes out with an executive order. And all this executive order says is that, well, it is now the official policy of the land that we will cover pre-existing conditions. One, it does not have the weight of law behind it. There is no policy behind it. It's just a written statement that says that he's going to do this. Two,
it's already law.
It's already law. And here's what the president said in the statement. He said, well, now we have officially assigned and stamped documents saying that this is the policy of the law for the first time, which is a lie. The first official suggestion that this was the law of the land was the president, his predecessor's signature on the Affordable Care Act. And he admitted yesterday that this is nothing more than a rebranding effort. Well, we can't call it Obamacare anymore. Now it's the America Great Health Act, or whatever you wanted to call it, because they got rid of the individual mandate. So by saying that there's no longer an individual mandate, it's no longer Obamacare. So all I'm going to do is call it Trump Care, and it's a win. Screw you, Donald Trump, and your freaking staff for trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. This is the kind of crap that if you cannot see through this, people, if you cannot see the naked hypocrisy and stupidity and asininity and arrogance and the freaking lying, oh my God,
We've got 8 more weeks of this shit or something like that. 6.
You're getting more
Make it
excited
stop,
than me?
America. Make it freaking stop. Rant off.
All right.
Tell us how you feel.
All right. By the way, I was taking a walk last night out in the suburbs, and there was a sign, 2 signs. One said decency, elect decency. The other said Joe Biden. And I thought, redundant.
I'm going to get a picture for the newsletter picture of the week, where the people you can order it with your dog's picture on it, and it says vote for Pinky because humans suck. So,
well, I'll tell you what. Just a note for people who are watching right now. Tuesday night is the debate. I am going to be doing something. I'll be live tweeting or live. I'll do something live on Facebook for the debate. For those of you who want to comment along with it while it's happening, I would love to have people join me for that. I don't think I'm going to do a Facebook Live or anything like that, but it'll just be on my Facebook page, just a post, and people can comment about what they're hearing. I love doing that for these debates. It should be a lot of fun. So that's Tuesday night. I believe it is Tuesday, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Chris Wallace will be doing this one, the first of 3 scheduled debates. But depending on how Donald Trump does, I wouldn't be surprised if he bailed out of the last 2. But we don't know if that's going to happen.
It's going to be Sonny Liston, Muhammad Ali.
Donald Trump has never saw a camera he didn't like. He's not going to bail.
Well, that's true. But I wonder if he's going to try to stalk behind Joe Biden the way he did Hillary Clinton last time around. Like I said, fisticuffs may not be out of the question. We shall see.
I thought about that. I thought about it. It's possible.
So anybody who wants to join me for that Tuesday, I'll put out a thread for it, and we would love to have you join in the conversation because it's always a lot of fun. Also, thanks to Michael Lucido for engineering this broadcast today. He helps out quite a bit, and thank you, Michael. We appreciate it very much. Thanks to my sponsor, James Oliver Coffee, for their continued support of this program. JamesOliverCoffee.com. Don't forget, there is a promo code you can use, CF Show. Get 15% off your first order. That's right. Everybody show off their mugs today.
I'm getting some of that.
It's good. I like it. I'm a big fan, and it's very cool of them to do this for us, which I appreciate. And, of course, thanks to my guests, Steve Fishman. Appreciate you pinch hitting today. Nice job. Thank you, sir.
No problem. I've got a lot of experience coming off the bench when I was at the University of Michigan. So you just call me anytime. I'm not in the starting group. That was Tomjanovich and Fife,
Yeah, well, hey, it's the way things go sometimes. But, hey, it's not bad to follow up a guys in the Hall of Fame. So, Greg Bowens, thank you for being here, as always, sir. Appreciate it very much. And also, Allan and Nancy. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for tuning in and watching. We always appreciate it very much. If you like this, share it. Tell your friends that we do this every Friday about 11:30-ish. We're usually ready to go, and we love doing this every week, and we would love to have your participation. Leave comments, all that good stuff. And again, tell your friends, share us because, hey, word of mouth is the best advertising we can do. So I appreciate it. Everybody have a great weekend. And Allan,
stay home safely.
My name's ML Elric. I'm an investigative reporter and a connoisseur of fine yogurts. I know a little bit about Detroit. I know a little bit about deadlines, and I'm asking you to become a member of DeadlineDetroit.com. Like me, I'm not asking you to do anything I wouldn't do. I'm making a monthly donation. My wife is making a monthly donation. I know that seems redundant, but they need the money, and the money goes to a good place. Getting the story out, getting the truth out. Because if we don't support local journalism, there's some people a couple blocks away from here who are going to get away with a whole bunch of stuff that's going to cost you a whole lot more than just a few bucks out of your pocket every month. Go to DeadlineDetroit.com, become a member. You'll see it's really easy at the top of the website. Give early, give often, give generously. Just give a damn. That's the best way I know how.
The Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is sponsored by James Oliver Coffee Company at JamesOliverCoffee.com. James Oliver is a second-generation family-owned and Detroit-based coffee roaster, offering 19 different blends of freshly roasted coffee. The company pioneered link temperature roasting, and they source the best beans from around the world to create an outstanding coffee experience, no matter which beans you choose. To start, try the Alma Mater blend. James Oliver Coffee gives $5 for each bag of its Alma Mater blend to the Detroit Public Schools Foundation. And don't forget, use the promo code CFSHOW, that's CFSHOW, to get 15% off your first order. James Oliver Coffee, available at select grocery stores in Metro Detroit and, of course, at JamesOliverCoffee.com. Remember, use the promo code CFSHOW to get 15% off your first order. That's JamesOliverCoffee.com.